The world watched in horror as news broke of another Russian missile strike on Ukrainian soil. On April 18, 2025, the city of Kharkiv became the latest target in a conflict that has tragically escalated over the past 3 years. This wasn't just another attack in a war-torn region, it was a stark reminder of the human cost of this conflict. As the dust settled, the world grappled with the aftermath, the casualties, and the implications of this latest act of aggression. The attack on Kharkiv, a city steeped in history and culture, was a direct hit on civilian infrastructure. Apartment buildings, once homes to families, were reduced to rubble. An educational institution, a symbol of hope for the future, lay in ruins. Businesses, the lifeblood of the community, were destroyed. The attack left a trail of devastation, a grim testament to the ongoing conflict. This latest attack has sent shockwaves across the globe, raising questions about the future of Ukraine and the possibility of a negotiated peace. With tensions escalating between Russia and the West, the situation remains highly volatile. As the international community condemns the attack and calls for a ceasefire, the conflict in Ukraine continues to cast a long shadow over global peace and security. The morning of April 18th dawned like any other in Kharkiv, with residents going about their daily routines. However, that sense of normalcy was shattered within hours as a barrage of Russian missiles rained down upon the city. The attack left Kharkiv reeling, its streets scarred with the wounds of war. The initial reports painted a grim picture. 1 person confirmed dead and 82 injured, including 6 innocent children. The casualties were rushed to overwhelmed hospitals, their lives forever changed by the events of that day. The true extent of the damage is still being assessed, but the early estimates are staggering. The attack on Kharkiv was not just an attack on buildings and infrastructure, it was an attack on the very fabric of a community. It was a cruel reminder of the indiscriminate nature of war, where civilians often bear the brunt of the violence. As rescue workers searched through the rubble hoping to find survivors, the world watched in horror, wondering how much more suffering the people of Ukraine would have to endure. The true horror of the Kharkiv missile attack can be best understood through the eyes of those who lived through it. Survivors recounted harrowing tales of escape, their voices trembling with a mix of fear and disbelief. Their stories provide a chilling glimpse into the chaos and devastation that unfolded that day. One resident, a young woman named Anya, described the moment the first missile struck. "I was at home with my family preparing breakfast when we heard a deafening roar," she said, her voice shaking. "The ground shook beneath our feet and the windows shattered. We knew instantly that we were under attack." Another survivor, an elderly man named Petro, spoke of the terrifying aftermath. "The air was thick with smoke and dust," he recalled, his eyes welling up. "I saw people running, screaming, covered in blood. It was like something out of a nightmare." These first-hand accounts serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of this conflict, the invisible scars left on the survivors who will forever carry the memory of that day. The devastation in Kharkiv was not solely due to the sheer number of missiles launched, but also the type of weaponry deployed. Reports indicate that Russia utilized ballistic missiles, known for their long range and devastating payload. Adding to the tragedy, these missiles were equipped with cluster munitions, a particularly cruel and indiscriminate weapon. Cluster munitions are designed to disperse dozens, even hundreds of smaller bomblets over a wide area. These bomblets often fail to detonate on impact, littering the area with unexploded ordnance. This creates a deadly legacy, turning civilian areas into minefields long after the initial attack. The use of cluster munitions is widely condemned by humanitarian organizations, as they pose an unacceptable risk to civilians. Their indiscriminate nature makes them particularly dangerous in populated areas, where they can cause widespread injury and death, even long after a conflict has ended. The deployment of such weapons in Kharkiv raises serious concerns about Russia's disregard for international law and the safety of non-combatants. Section 5. The Geopolitics of War, a World Divided. The missile strike on Kharkiv comes at a time of heightened global tension, with the conflict in Ukraine serving as a flashpoint in the escalating rivalry between Russia and the West. The United States, along with its NATO allies, has been a staunch supporter of Ukraine, providing military and humanitarian aid since the beginning of the conflict. However, this support has been met with increasing hostility from Moscow. Russia views NATO's eastward expansion as a direct threat to its security and has repeatedly accused the West of prolonging the conflict by arming Ukraine. The situation is further complicated by the involvement of other actors, such as China and North Korea, who have their own strategic interests in the region. The attack on Kharkiv has been widely condemned by the international community, with many seeing it as a deliberate escalation of the conflict by Russia. The United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the situation, but no concrete action has been taken due to the veto power held by Russia. As the war in Ukraine grinds on, the world watches nervously, hoping for a diplomatic solution but fearing the potential for a wider conflict. Section 6. America's stance: a frustrated peacemaker. The United States has been at the forefront of international efforts to broker a ceasefire in Ukraine, but these efforts have been met with limited success. The Biden administration has repeatedly called for Russia to cease hostilities and engage in meaningful negotiations, but Moscow has shown little interest in compromise. Senator Marco Rubio, a prominent voice on foreign policy, recently expressed the growing frustration within the White House over the lack of progress in resolving the conflict. He warned that the United States would abandon its peace push if there were no tangible results within a matter of days. The United States finds itself in a delicate position, torn between its commitment to supporting Ukraine and its desire to avoid a wider conflict with Russia. The attack on Kharkiv has only served to complicate matters, raising questions about the effectiveness of diplomacy and the potential for further escalation. Section 7. Russia's resolve: the unrealistic ceasefire. From the Kremlin's perspective, the calls for a ceasefire are seen as disingenuous and unrealistic. Russia maintains that it is not the aggressor in this conflict, but rather a force defending its own security interests. Moscow justifies its actions in Ukraine as a necessary response to what it perceives as NATO's encroachment on its borders and the West's support for a hostile Ukrainian government. Russia's UN ambassador, Vasily Nebenzia, recently dismissed the idea of a ceasefire as unrealistic under the current circumstances. He argued that any cessation of hostilities would only benefit Ukraine, allowing it to regroup and rearm with the support of its Western allies. Russia has shown no indication that it is willing to back down from its current course, despite the mounting international pressure and the devastating consequences of its actions. The attack on Kharkiv is a chilling reminder that the Kremlin is prepared to use all means at its disposal to achieve its objectives in Ukraine. Section 8. The shadow of North Korea, a new front in the conflict. Adding another layer of complexity to the conflict is the emerging alliance between Russia and North Korea. Recent reports suggest that Pyongyang has been supplying Moscow with weapons and ammunition, providing a much-needed lifeline to the Russian military. This burgeoning partnership has raised concerns about the potential for North Korea to play a more active role in the conflict. There are even unconfirmed reports of North Korean troops fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. While these claims remain unsubstantiated, the possibility of North Korean involvement adds a dangerous new dimension to the war. The growing ties between Russia and North Korea are a worrying development for the international community. It is a sign of how the conflict in Ukraine has the potential to destabilize the entire global security architecture. Section 9. Conclusion: a world on edge. The missile strike on Kharkiv is a stark reminder that the conflict in Ukraine is far from over. It is a tragedy for the people of Ukraine, who continue to bear the brunt of the violence, and a source of grave concern for the international community. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for a swift and peaceful resolution to this crisis. Yet with each passing day, the prospects of peace seem to diminish. The attack on Kharkiv is a stark reminder that the path to peace is fraught with obstacles and that the consequences of failure are too dire to contemplate. As the world grapples with the fallout from this latest tragedy, one thing is clear: the conflict in Ukraine is a defining moment for our time, a test of our collective will to uphold peace and security in the face of aggression and tyranny. The choices we make today will have far-reaching consequences for generations to come.